Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Bufnagle the podcast, where we explore entertaining and enlightening discussions of the adventure of life and all things good. From science and technology to history and philosophy to leadership and success. We hope to give you a better understanding of the world and skills for everyone to pursue their own adventure. Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Bufnagle the podcast, where we talk about all things good in the pursuit of the adventure of life. I'm Zach, and we got a great show today. We're diving back into the Zachisms. We're going to discuss the fifth one, I believe, which is manage your energy. And then, well, I could do these alone. I could ramble on for 40 minutes talking about things I've developed over the course of living for these past however long I've been living. But I'm going to bring Rafe back on in because we just renewed his contract. So you're stuck with both of us until we decide you're not stuck with both of us. So, Rafe, how are you doing today?
Well, Zach, you know the Bufnagle podcasting draft is imminent, and I'm very pleased to have renewed my contract with the Bufnagle team. And the podcast may draft. I'll just say this, the podcast may draft a new co-host in the first round of the upcoming draft. But I'll tell you what, my job is to host the podcast, and it is not to mentor or bring a new young guy along. This is, this is my chair, Zach, until somebody takes it from me. So it is, as always, Zach, it is wonderful to be here, and it's good to do these podcasts. It's, we for those of you on the outside, we record these at certain times during the week, and sometimes we'll go a couple days in a row and bam, 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 crank them out. And other times we'll have gaps in between when we have vacations or other stuff coming up. But it's always good to do this, and it's always good to get behind the mic here and discuss these topics because it keeps. This is where the action happens, and this is where this is what we study for, I guess they say. To all our listeners, I have to say thank you. Without you, we are literally talking to the walls, and that's not a good thing. Because of you, all of you listeners out there, the Bufnagle podcast is now recognized as a global top 10% podcast, and that is something that I don't think we ever really thought that we didn't set that.
I think that was the plan. I thought we just wanted to get a listener.
Well,
that wasn't my mom.
Well, we got one. Your mom, we'll talk about your mom's ability to listen in the future, but we're grateful that we are able to provide you something that you think is of value to your listening ears. As always, Bufnagle at bufnagle.com and legal at bufnagle.com. If you have something you want to tell us, if you have an idea, we've had a couple ideas for show topics that have come through the email machine, so that's great.
And they've been received well from the fans, so
they have, and
good balance.
Yes, that is. So we really appreciate your feedback and your interest. That is, it's humbling and rewarding all at the same time. We're on Twitter and we're on Instagram. We're Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, and all sorts of other places. If there's a platform you need us to be on, let us know and we'll figure out how to get on there. If you are new to the podcast, welcome. Thank you for coming. We are glad that you are here. We're going to ask you give us 4 episodes, and we will give you reasons to come back for more. We talk about lots of different things. Surely there will be something that resonates with you. And remember, if you tell a friend to come, you will get a free episode. And the other thing, Zach, we need people to subscribe. And the reason we do that is it's really helpful for us from our perspective to know where we are with the listeners and stuff. It doesn't cost you anything to do. There's, on your little apps, you hit subscribe, and all it does is it just tells you when a new episode drops.
So when you subscribe, you'll get that notification on Tuesday morning saying, hey, look, more Bufnagle for you to listen to. And you can just click that right there. It'll take you straight to our page. You hit the play button. You have a great 45 minutes.
Right. So that'll get you through your Tuesday mornings is our plan. It doesn't cost you anything, but what's really valuable, and this will cost you something, a little effort on your part, is to leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. They allow you to rate the podcast and provide a written review. These are very helpful for us. They help people see what you see, hopefully, and that helps us out. So that would be helpful for us. So Zach,
Yeah, that
There
would
we are.
be great. Yeah, like I mentioned earlier at the top, we're going back towards Zachisms, and this week on Zachisms, we need to get a nice little TV intro previously on, but we'll work with our production crew for that.
We know who they are, right?
Yep. But like I mentioned earlier, we're looking at manager energy. So this is a lot about how you interact with others, interact with your job, choose priorities, and kind of manage your time overall. Rafe, I know we talked in our pre-production meeting about what does energy mean, and the default energy is
Well, the default energy. Okay, so I got to tell you, the default energy is energy makes it go, and that's a reference to those of you out there who are Richard Feynman aficionados and have read some of his books. And I forget it whether it's in Surely You're Joking, Mr. Feynman, or What Do You Care About? What Do You Care What Other People Think? It's one of those two. But he tells a story that he was reading a kid's book on like basic science or physics or something like that, and the question was what makes what makes the car go around the racetrack, or what makes the airplane go in the air, or what makes the little kid be able to pull the wagon. And the answer was energy makes it go. And his statement was that's a really stupid answer for energy because it doesn't tell you anything about what energy is. So for those of you out there who have studied your physics, I believe energy is the ability to do work, all right, which is moving a force through a distance. And the ability to do work, Zach, is really what your energy is too when you talk about managing your energy.
yeah. So when I say manage your energy, for me, it's how manage your ability to perform a set of tasks, whatever that set of tasks is. Manage your energy when you interact with other people, and so that energy is well received, and you don't feel drained or exhausted at the end of that interaction, so that you can then perform more tasks at the high level that you believe you can. If your energy is drained, then you're performing those tasks at a lower energy, which means you're less efficient. It's going to be not as good, and you're not going to feel as good about the work that you did.
Yeah. So now you have some ways to some ideas that three general things you think about when you think about managing your energy. So what are those three
Yeah, so
things?
I would say there's three compartments about where your energy is directed. And that first one is with the people you surround yourself with. Those are your friends, relationships you have with other people. Maybe it is how you interact with your superiors or people who work under you if you're a leader. It's all of that kind of human interaction, human connection, and the energy that goes into those relationships.
Yeah, it's interesting when you said this, and we didn't talk about this in the pre-production meeting or the pre-production meeting that we've had for this
Or the
show
donut meeting we have after.
afterwards. Well, that's always celebratory afterwards, the post-game meal, right? So it's interesting when, as you're talking here, what I'm thinking is this: is there are some people out there that are extroverted, and there are people out there that are introverted. And one thing I've heard, because people have said you're a rather extroverted individual, and I'm not sure I am necessarily. There are times like if I'm traveling on a plane, I'm pretty quiet. I sit in the corner and read my book, and my little headphones on. But there are other times when I'm a little bit more extroverted. But I hear people say that the people who are introverted, they will say things like interactions with people, they just exhaust me. And what happens is afterwards, I need time to recharge. And that's coming into my head as you're saying these things about dealing with people and managing your energy. So I guess I'm feeling this is if you're saying that if certain people are draining your energy, and making you, I guess they're lowering your ability to do your work. They're kind of making you even like you need more recharge time
Yeah.
if you're a person who's not particularly extroverted, but regardless, you got to manage your ability to do the jobs that you need to get done.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting that you bring up that extroversion and introversion um, energy drainage creation thing. I am a very introverted individual, but if I'm having interactions with people, if it's a one-on-one, two-on-one situation, that really excites me. That really brings out a lot of energy and passion in that conversation, regardless of how mundane or simple it may seem. Because for me, I really crave that one-on-one, two-on-one connection with people. So for me, like it's not like the ooh, you're introverted, therefore when you're with people you get drained. Yes, if I'm with a big group of people, my energy will get drained mainly because that's not an environment that's suited for me. So again, this we can touch on this a little bit later, but like it is interesting you bring up the extroverted introverted scale because sometimes you need to understand where you can create energy when you interact with people, whereas instead of thinking of it as where what happens after you interact with people if you need to recharge or if you're charged because of that interaction.
Yeah. So, and that's one of those things. You say the people that you surround yourself with helps you manage that energy. So there's got to be certain people there and that you're with. You're like, you know what, this is this relationship exhausts me. I guess I've seen that in a lot of I see that in a lot of youth in I guess I'll call them romantic relationships that they are just they appear to be exhausted by these relationships, and it seems to me that the relationships in your life ought to not exhaust you. They ought to bring you energy. They ought to improve the ability for you to do work, and they ought to make you a better person. So Zach, what do we do if we are
Yeah,
around people that are draining us?
yeah, I think you mentioned it really well about this exhaustion or this drain or this pull away. For me, it's like I mentioned earlier. I prefer those closer one-on-one conversations, two-on-one conversations, to be able to build that energy, build those relationships, and those people that I surround myself with, that I feel comfortable having that conversation with, gives me energy, so I can then use that energy and be able to complete my other task and my other objectives. I've had groups of friends that became exhausting for me because they were interested in and they were doing things that didn't really align with who I was. So I was out here doing one thing in column B, and they wanted to do something in column Z, and those two things didn't align. If they're out there doing that thing, it's not going to align with me. It's going to drain me. I feel pulled in a different direction, and it's being comfortable with finding people who have similar principles, similar ideas, so that you can kind of vibe off them, create a little vibration, a little gravity, step up and perform at that next level because you're around people that see your success. You're around people that see your beliefs and your systems that you want to change, and all of that energy you can then take and you can go out and complete tasks at a high level. You can go be a good leader. You can go do more than you would if you were around people that you necessarily don't get along with. I mean, when I've been in those situations, I've realized if I take myself out, I do better. I don't mean ill harm to those people. I think they're good people. They're just not for me.
Well, some of them are good people, but yeah, I'm sure some of them aren't, right? But that's the whole thing about if there's what would we call it if there's disharmony or dissonance, I guess is the right word, then that's really a drain as opposed to something that is harmonic or something that is synergistic, right? You got synergism and you got antagonism. If you're
Synergy makes it go.
synergy makes energy, which makes it go, right? So antagonism is, and that's what you're saying. If you're in people if you're in situations around people that are causing you, draining you without any production, that's just antagonism, and we ought to surround ourselves with people that help us get to where we're going.
Yeah, we want people to help lift us up. We want people to provide, they don't have to have the exact same ideals as you, but they have similar enough ideals that like you're surrounded by them, they're surrounded by similar people to them, and it creates this insulating bubble, not in a bubble as in like I'm protected and these are the only thoughts allowed, but a bubble as in these people are going to protect you and help you strive and lift up to be able to complete the other things on your to-do list.
Right, and these people aren't people that always, they're not just what we would call a yes man. All right, they're not people that are always just going to suck up to you. They challenge you sometimes. They encourage you. They pick you up when you fall. All these things that we talked about with your previous, all the previous Zachisms that we've mentioned. They help you do your role. They help you silence the critic from your mind. They provide all the things that allow you to do well. and surround yourself with that. But there are other things that you talked about three categories or classifications of places where
I
you
think I
have to
called them
manage
containers earlier, but
containers. Yeah, okay. All right. So people is one,
yep.
and what's the next one?
Second one is what you do. So this could take various different forms, but we'll first look at if you're a leader in an organization. If you try to schedule the meeting, run the meeting, take action after the meeting, schedule the next meeting, and make sure everyone makes it to the happy hour on time, you're going to be drained. You're taking on a lot of role, you're taking on a lot of responsibility that you're going to always feel like you're playing catch up and always feeling like you're trying to do the next thing. And sometimes you need to delegate that task, have someone else take that over so you can focus on the thing that your job or your role, relating back to a previous Zachism, is better able to perform so you can be successful. And the whole team as a whole is going to be more successful because your energy is focused towards the thing that you can consistently get done.
Yeah. So you have a job to get certain things done, and that doesn't necessarily mean you have to do every one of those components of that job. Certainly, as a leader of some sort of team in business or in sports or wherever else you would be, some sort of civic organization, there's a big goal for that group. And as leader, your job is not to do all those things, but to make sure it gets done. And part of that is making sure everybody does the things that they do well. So we talked a little bit about cost and benefit of that. There are certain pieces to every job you have that that provide real value to you personally, but they also drain you a little bit. And the goal is to find those things that give you a net positive
Yeah.
in what you do.
Yeah, but so if you take on a bunch of things, regardless of how much energy you get out from that or how much positive you get out of that, you're going to be end of the day you're going to be drained and be like, why am I doing this? Like, bleh. You're literally going to feel like, bleh. Like if that was a feeling, like everybody knows that feeling because they've been in that position.
Well, see, the advantage. Wait. The advantage right now is not only do our listeners get to hear Zach's feeling audibly, but I get to see it and hear it at the same time. So, all right. So you said that's a feeling we need to avoid if we're trying to do everything.
And if you're in like I mentioned earlier, if you're in that business boardroom and you're taking on all of the things with the meeting, you're gonna at the end of the meeting, and when you get ready to go to the next one, you're gonna be drained, you're gonna be tired, and you're not gonna be able to perform or lead at that meeting. Additionally, if you're someone who maybe is supporting that leader in a meeting, it's going to be a lot harder for you to support someone who's drained. You kind of feed off that energy as well because energy is contagious. It's like a disease. It's kind of like COVID, but a lot more fun. Actually, it's like COVID and it's a lot more fun. So the next great pandemic
is the energy pandemic. Yeah,
it's going to be a good thing. But I I went off the rails a bit there. I apologize, but that energy you create and energy you use in that meeting, it's going to allow you to be more productive in your work. Myself, like playing college rugby, when I took on a lot of the roles and responsibilities of communicating with the league, washing the jerseys, running practices, keeping everyone organized, it was a big drain on me. And I needed people to take that off my plate. And this is why you surround yourself with the people who you surround yourself with, so they're able to take that off your plate. So maybe they can focus on the league organization and the practice plans and other things, and I can focus on maybe the minor coaching and bringing people onto the team and washing the jerseys, and someone else can look at practice plans and that organization. Someone else can be looking at communication with the league, and eventually we can all come together and we're all on the same page. We're all able to manage our energy. We're at a good stable level so that when game time comes, we're all focused and we have the same plan and we can attack that and we can win.
Well, yeah. So two things come to mind when you're saying that. There's the adage that many hands make light work, right? So that's very obvious to everybody out there. And there are roles in that list of things you just mentioned. There are things there that nobody really wants to do. All right. Nobody says, "Oh, please, 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 I want to wash the jerseys." Right? That's not a thing.
But I like laundry day, so I'm going to take that on all day.
Okay. So, but that's the thing. There are certain pieces of this that like people are like, really, why? Like, and people don't want to get assigned that role. But part of that is, what we're talking about, Zach. These adages and pillars that you talk about, they all support each other as well. And we mentioned the last one we talked about, I think, was knowing your role and doing your job. And sometimes building the cathedral means you haul the bricks.
Yeah.
And so if you surround yourself, I think what I'm hearing you say is, if you surround yourself with people who have a similar focus, people who are providing you with energy, and people who are willing to do their job, then everybody has a light load to carry.
Yeah.
The load gets carried for the organization, and then the goals get met, and people are in positions to make things uh, to be successful, and to get the outcome that you want.
Yeah, I mean that's I think a great way to describe that. Like if you're doing something and you're exhausted all the time, your ability to connect with that team, to interact with that team, to pull that team up, to lift that team up is going to be hindered because you don't have your full ability to perform. It's in anywhere I have been. If I've tried to do too much, I get burnt out, and then the quality of work I produce is not very good, and then I have to repeat it, and it becomes a whole thing. You need someone to take that stuff off your plate. You need to be able to realize like I can only give so much to to this one job, or I can only give so much to these different tasks to be able to effectively fill my cup and be energized and be able to be successful.
Yeah, and I've seen that a number of times, and I mentioned this before. Is that when I was a leader of our Knights of Columbus Council at our parish, that the guy who was the outgoing Grand Knight when I was coming in, he told me, he said, just pick two or three things that you guys are going to focus on. If you try to do everything, you will fail. And he was exactly right. That was a very important thing to do. Is you can't do everything everybody asks you. Certainly, if people just come to ask, they're just draining, like you would say, draining your energy. But if everybody is aligned on that goal, then you will find people that have the skill sets you need to to accomplish the tasks you need to do to be successful.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting that you bring up if try to do two things. If you try to do everything, you're going to fail. If you try to focus on one or two things, you do those things successfully. Someone else can do the other things that you're not doing, and you can, as an organization, you can do more because you did less. Because less is more in this situation, which comes back to being able to manage yourself.
So I'm going to ask this, because this is a thing that I've seen over and over again, and this is a difficult thing, and I'm seeing it now as I'm approaching the twilight of my career. I'm seeing these things that are more obvious to me now than they were then. But this question comes up. Like, people say, well, you have to delegate, you have to delegate, you have to delegate. And the question comes up, well, I can tell Jenny that her job is to do this, but that's delegation. But how do I really make sure that that follows through? I think I have an answer to that, but I want to know, how you see that.
Yeah, well, my answer is you don't just tell her what to do. You show her, you teach her, and then you allow her the freedom to do it her way, so that Jenny can be successful at it. And then when she does it, you compliment her and you provide positive feedback, because positive feedback will create positive energy for her, so she feels welcomed in that role and in that job, so she's going to be able to do it well.
Yeah,
That's my simple answer,
yeah.
and
Well, no, I think those are real. Those
that's
are
kind
really
of
good.
just like default of being kind, which we don't really see a lot of these days.
Well, you're right, and that's the thing is, I guess the assumption is that, at least in a work world, when people have a job, they have to really, um, they have to do what they're told. Otherwise, it's it. I mean, they're out, right? I mean, but in a volunteer organization, it's a different story. It's like they can just bail, and it's like not gonna hurt them at all. They just go get I'll go join a different club. So, but I think what it comes down to is this understanding that everybody is, what do they say, singing from the same hymnal, or focusing on the same goal. And I think, like, I'm looking at your rugby team in college. It's a volunteer organization. There's nobody gets scholarships. People only get their Saturdays taken up with trips driving to Eastern or Western Oregon. I mean, so there, I mean, it is just, it's a drain on them unless they get some benefit from it. And what you need to do is you need to make sure that they are fully committed to the goals of the organization. And if they are, then they will recognize where that component fits in the grand scheme. And certainly for the tasks that appear to be less visible, less heroic, less in the public eye. Those are the things that really need to be emphasized within the team environment to make sure that people do. Everybody sees the guy who scores, right? What your job is behind closed doors is to make sure that everybody on the team, including the guy who scores, knows who threw the block to get that guy open.
Yeah. Well, you can't throw blocks in rugby, but
yeah, you can't throw, or who made the pass, or the offload, or the or whatever it is with the ruck that they did to do that. So, so that's what you do on your job or with your schoolwork and how you delegate. And there is another piece of that.
Yeah, there's
your job.
This one, it flows through. It's kind of like a waterfall. So like who you surround yourself with, waterfalls into being able to into the things that you do, and then that waterfalls into the things you prioritize. And these are the things that your non-negotiables, the things that every day you need to make sure you take care of, and that you do to be able to, one, create your own energy so you can do other things effectively, and more importantly, so that you don't feel like you have to do so many things in the course of a day, and the end of the day comes and you didn't get anything to relax or take a break from that. So for me, it's your priorities and your non-negotiables are these two things that are interconnected to help you maintain and stabilize your energy.
So do you think these non-negotiables need to be the same for everyone on the team? Are there certain components that are the same, or how does that work out? Because you and I have some priorities for doing this podcast, right? And I'll bet they are similarly aligned, but I'll bet they're not the same.
Yeah, I mean, for me, like my non-negotiables and my priorities are studying for the bar exam, doing my work, and working out. And you might be like, why is working out a priority? And well, for me, working out allows me to perform those other two tasks well. So for and then if I get that stuff done, all the bonus stuff I do, which is mainly just podcast and playing video games with my brother, is able to be successful. And I'm able to do that stuff without feeling that I have a drain, that I have to do other things. I have to study, or I have to do work, or I have to do other things. I use that to create energy so I can be more productive with everything I do. But necessarily with the priorities for a podcast is, I got to make sure I get production stuff done so it's uploaded so that you can write the fancy glowing preview so people know what wonderful things we get to say for the week.
I got you. So, so you talked about working out being a high priority. That's what do they say, that your health is your wealth? Is that's something that you've discovered over the last several years? Is that's really valuable to you?
Yeah, for me, it allows me to check the boxes of a lot of things that are important to me in life. I get to build connections with people, with individuals, which is I crave strong, genuine human connection, and I'm able to do that with people I know that I work out with, and that's a benefit for me, and that those connections, those relationships have lifted me up and allowed me to do things at a higher, more productive level. Being able to do that and have that as a focus and something that, if someone's like, hey, can we do something at X time? It's like, that sounds great, but I have to work out, because if I don't work out, I'm not going to be able to connect fully to these other things that I want to get done.
And those are priorities. So, there are a lot of those priorities. People say, like, I got to get my sleep. I got to eat. Those fundamental things that you absolutely have to do. It's interesting. You say, you have to you got to make time to do those things that are high on your priority list. And that is those are the things that have to get on there. So obviously, right now your priorities are those three things, but those can change, those adjust, those move. And as your station in life changes, there are some things that that come and go. And so I assume that once the bar is out of the way, then there will be other things that take the place of
Yeah,
that.
I think things get shifted and focuses change in college. My priorities were school and rugby, or rugby and school, or just maybe it was just rugby. Who really knows?
Yeah, yeah. These see this. See, you shouldn't say this in public when your mom is listening. All right. So
Oh, dang it, my bad. I only went to class and I never went to rugby practice. There we go.
yes, right, yeah. But truth is something we ought to seek as well. So well, but that's an interesting thing because you say like people say, do you want to go do X, Y, or Z? And you say, well, I'm sorry, I got to work out. But there's when I was in graduate school, I remember I was that was one of those things that school was very important to me, but so were a lot of those other things. And the question is, how do you meld those together? And I got to the point where I would spend any waking hour that I wasn't doing something else doing homework. I mean, that was the thing. It was like if I had 6 minutes between between when I got done taking my shower and getting dressed until my ride came to pick me up, I had 6 minutes there. And
Yep.
I know nowadays, like I know what I would do now if I was that person with 6 minutes. I'll tell you, I'll be real honest. I'd be on my phone and I would scroll through probably through Twitter because I read a lot of stuff out of there. And then I would look up 6 minutes later and I would be like, now I got nothing. Back then, what I would do, one of two things. I'd either be at my desk working out equation problems that we used to have to do, or I'd be reviewing flashcards to help me memorize, 600 different theorems for stochastic differential equations. So, but do you see that? How do you see this? I guess the social media thing, the internet-y stuff, it's a good and a bad.
Yeah,
Do you see it? How do what?
I think it can be a great good. I think it can be a great good. I think it's not a great good in its current iteration. I think the good of it is, like you said, you can read things that you're interested in. You can kind of tailor your feeds to relate to things you want to learn more about. But how many people do you know check their phone or check their Facebook every 30 minutes? Like, if you're doing that, that thing becomes a distraction. So there's this wonderful feature on most phones called Do Not Disturb. Mine is pretty much on like all the time. And then I throw my phone somewhere and I forget where it is.
And then
So
your
I'm
mother
able to
says,
focus.
And then your mother says, I haven't heard from Zach. I wonder where he is. I said, I'll bet he's on Do Not Disturb.
Yeah. And then I'll look at my phone and it'll be like 5 hours from a message. I'm like, yeah, if I need to respond, I can respond to it. But I think with that technology now being so instantaneous, we use it as a proxy for actual human connection when we should instead go call a friend, meet up with a friend, and actually get that genuine relationship because you're going to build more energy that way. You're going to be able to be more successful in other things you do if you ditch the phone, ditch the social media, and kind of focus on the things that you want to do and be successful with.
Yeah, I guess you could make the argument, and we could, if we were super duper social media savants, Zach, we would have,
We'd have a lot bigger following on
we
the podcast.
well we would have monstrous. Well, we'd
And
still be
we'd
in the
have
top,
probably a sponsorship deal with like Lego or Trader Joe's
something like
or
that. But you know
both.
what? But that's not our focus here, right? And to do that would require us to give up something else that we probably think is more important. Like I have a real job. You have a real job, and this is something we do on the side because we think it provides benefit to the people that are out there. So I go around and around on the phone thing because back in the day, I would, if I had 6 minutes, I would be going through my flashcards. And why I don't know why that's a whole lot different than scrolling through my phone.
Well, there's an
But
active component involved when
that's true.
you're not scrolling. Like I remember the other day, I did a couple practice questions. I did like 5 practice questions while cooking, because like
Right.
when you're cooking, it's you set something and you wait until you have to flip it instead of like watching a YouTube video. Now the YouTube video I might have laughed at, but
Well, at the end, right. But that's the other thing is like people used to, if you look at a picture of the 1930s and guys driving around on the subway or doing whatever, and they weren't on their phones. They were all reading the paper.
yeah,
But it's an interesting thing is they were all reading the same paper pretty much. All right. There was a kind of a canon of collective uh,
Ideologies.
ideologies of thoughts of, and and that's a risky thing on one hand, right? That is too, because you can get this collective mindset that could be dangerous. On the other hand, it preserves the commonality of the community and helps people stay connected. So I struggle a lot with the idea of how do we make this phone our slave instead of the other way around. And that is like a lot of technology, a lot of like I work in a field that has a lot of technology. All right, we do a lot of stuff on the computers, on the interwebs, but it is amazing to me how enslaved people are to certain components of the technology. Instead of learning the tool to be their so that you can enslave the tool, people become enslaved to the tool, and that's a dangerous thing.
You mentioned that really well, and I think I kind of go back to this exhaustion point that we mentioned earlier. When you're always on your phone, you're always on this social media, you get into this comparative of like, oh, why am I not like this person? This person's perfect and great and wonderful, and it deflates you. Where instead you could do something that you care about, that you're genuine about, and create that energy, and then use that energy to go help somebody else. Kind of like what we do with this podcast. Yeah, it's silly. Yeah, it's goofy. Yeah, we have a cool theme song, but
We do, you know what? We do have a cool theme song, right?
but beyond that, we do this because we're trying to help and spread that good and create energy with other people so that they could do the same thing.
Right. So three things about managing energy. We got people. All right.
Yep.
Get rid of people that drain you and surround yourself with people that synergize with you and boost you up.
But not yes men. You want people to lift you up, not people to say you're great even if you're not great. We want that challenge.
I look at that when I'm lifting weights and the guy is spotting me, right? I mean, that should be the model.
We need a spotter for life. There we go.
Ooh, life spotter. All right. And the second thing is what you do, what your job is, how you
don't take on too much, because if you take on too much, you're not going to have energy to do all of those things.
Yeah. All right. And then the last thing is, and we're not going to tell you what your priorities have to be, right? I mean, these are your priorities. And that's, that is an interesting thing. When I first started my work career, the company sent us to it was Franklin Quest back then. It's Franklin Covey now, I think. We call it time management, but it's really more than that. It's about getting out of your life what you want out of your life. And it was interesting because some people at the beginning were like, well, I don't want them telling me what I have to do with my time. And the answer was, no, we're not going to tell you that at all. We're going to tell you that if you want to get done the things you want to get done, you better decide what those things are.
Yep.
Write them down and shoot for them. And those are your priorities, right, Zach? Those are your non-negotiables.
Yeah. And those are the things that take up the bulk of your time.
Well, that's where we are. So manage your energy.
Yeah. Manage your energy. Do all that. Stay positive, stay focused on it, and you can do great things. So I don't think we have any other housekeeping to note, Rafe. Is that?
No, I think we are all clear, Zach. We drained that swamp at the beginning, and we'll continue to push ahead and hopefully be worthy of our global top 10% podcast rating. So thanks, everybody.
Yeah, that sounds fantastic. Again, thanks to all of our listeners for listening. Go seek the good, be the good, and spread the good. Enjoy the adventure of life.